Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radio Inc.'s Radio Masters Sales Series 2, The Power of Better, Real Talk for Sales Managers. I'm Cameron Coates, Editor-in-Chief of Radio Inc., and I'm so excited to have our guest here today. This is going to be a very, very jam-packed full of discussion session, so I want to bring him in right now. First off, we've got Stephanie Downs, Senior Vice President, Senior Consultant at the Center for Sales Strategy. Stephanie, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thrilled to have you here with Emily Ward, Midwest Communications Nashville Sales Manager and reigning Radio Wayne Award winner from 2024. Emily, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you here. And, I can't think of a better duo to talk about this with, because this spring we reported, I guess maybe it was early summer, but sprang out of some reporting we did in Radio Inc. from the Center for Sales Strategy's annual Media Sales Report, which is a state of the industry that you all do, Stephanie. And it's real talk about the realities revealed in 2025, the good, the challenging, and the opportunities hiding in plain sight for sellers. And so I wanted to get you all together so that we could go over this and talk about, some of the biggest challenges and opportunities, like I say, for sales managers these days, and that's what I want this to be, a discussion between not only us, but everyone in the chat. So, go ahead and put some questions in there. If you have those, we'll get to those at the end. But I will ask a quick chat prompt to get started. What's the biggest challenge you face today as a sales manager? But while everyone's typing that out, Stephanie, why don't you take a quick minute just to tell us about what went into developing the Media Sales Report?
Yeah, so it's something that we have done for a number of years now, and we just have been paying a lot of attention to the trends in the media industry, because there's always the common problems that we hear across all of the clients that we work with. And so we formalized the process, and I think, and I should know this, I really should, I think this is our 5th year in doing it. And it's extremely insightful, that things that we learn from challenges teams are having, the differences of how managers think one way or their salespeople think another way, compensation issues. There's just a lot that goes into it.
So let's jump into the biggest challenge. And what better place to start than the extremely difficult, recruitment and retention. Still the number one challenge. I think it has been through the 5 years that you all have been doing this, though it is trending downwards. It was 65% in 2023, 38% in 2025. Emily, in a world where appointments are harder to get, sales cycles getting longer, how are you balancing kind of team building with revenue generation in that sense?
It is a new adventure every single day. That's why I love sales so much. I would definitely say that there is a lot of prioritizing that's going to be important to make sure that you're doing. So, what is the win-win of hiring versus ramping up, your current team, making sure that you are, they have everything that they need and that you're pushing them into their best versions of themselves, while also having time to go do recruitment, while also managing budgets and doing everything else and putting out fires and herding cats, as I like to say. So definitely leaning on like delegation and specialization, understanding that looking for a team starts with what's the cards that are in front of you. So obviously seeing like who is on your team, what are their strengths, what are opportunities for growth, and finding that hire that can kind of close that gap and bridge the missing opportunities. So a lot of times people hire newer sales reps to go be hunters versus more experienced ones being kind of that farmer and being able to grow and grow share through accounts. So understanding the cards in front of you and how to prioritize and understand that like it's important to be recruiting. It's also really important to be coaching.
Mm-hmm. And, one of the things is that nearly a third of the managers say their new toughest part of the job is new business development. Stephanie, I got to ask, are we getting better at recruitment, or are these other challenges just becoming more pressing?
Both. I truly think that is still one of the most common things that, we hear. Of course, it's the new business development, but it really is about recruiting and making sure we have the right people. And I agree with what Emily was just saying. I think one of the missing elements when we're thinking about recruiting and adding to our team, I don't know that leaders always have the structured approach of going, okay, I've got to be recruiting 12 months. It is an everyday thing. It's not just when we have open positions. It really is a 52-week a year event. And then once we have people and we're hiring, and Emily, you just touched on this, but we need a structured onboarding process. We need one that is setting expectations and really outline what we expect of the new hire. One, because we want to set them up for success, but we also want them to be revenue generating members of the team sooner versus later. And I think that's an opportunity for us as leaders of sales organizations to get better at how we're doing that.
So I know what keeps people up at night besides onboarding, I think we just mentioned it, booking meetings, bringing in, new clients. 85%, according to the CSS study, of managers say it's harder than ever to book meetings, and sellers are telling us they need 5 to 9 attempts just to get one appointment. That's obviously a serious problem, and that's a lot of time and a lot of effort going into these sales. Stephanie, what are you seeing changed in the buyer landscape that's kind of making this more difficult?
Yeah. I actually read something just recently that actually said it was 10 to 12 now, not just up to the 9, which, on one hand, you're like, okay, there's a lot that's changed in the landscape causing that. And on the other hand, you have that moment of, my goodness, that's a lot. But truly, that's why we should be using all of the tools that we have access to, whether we have, CRMs in our sales organization that helps with sales enablement, that creates those sales efficiencies, using AI as part of that process, even if that's just helping you write an email, right? Just so you're faster at it and better at it, probably in some cases. But it's super important that we're using all of those tools just to really help us drive revenue and do it in better ways that does respond better. And understanding where the buyers are in their journey is part of that process, and making sure where we are approaching them is aligning with that. And I could go into so many other things on that.
Go for it if you want.
Yeah.
So Emily, what are you seeing in regards to this there on the ground level? How are you encouraging the troops?
Yes. Okay. So I'm a big advocate for utilizing a CRM and an AI, like a ChatGPT, whatever version you like. They're all named all sorts of different things. I think that at first, AI coming out, if you're seeing a lot of the team not using it, it's usually a fear of the unknown, or a fear that it's going to be like too complex and cumbersome. So obviously every day we're asking these sales teams to go out and do so much, like go door knocking, go cold calling, emailing, texting, follow-up networking events, but also don't forget to come back and update your CRM and get your prospecting done and all the account management. And so people are like, oh my gosh, one more heckin' sales tool that Emily is trying to talk about right now. But so what I've found to be really helpful and received well is talking about it in sales meetings. We have continuing education training and really just taking them step by step. We have a Q4 sponsorship that is coming up, and I built out email templates, follow-up email templates, LinkedIn emails, talk track if somebody did answer the phone, or you want to do a walk-in versus like a voicemail talk track, and all of it from AI. And it took me maybe 10 minutes to get it all and collect it together. And so I walked with the team through like, hey, these are great categories to go through. This is how I utilized AI to pull that. Here's how I used it on how to communicate that. It can take some of the pressure off of you. It can actually help speed up the 10 touch points that you have to make. Coming up with that for each individual person, like each individual prospect, can be so exhausting and cumbersome. And so the fact that you can utilize AI to tailor that approach and have it come up with a couple of different options that you're able to just take it and run, I saw that work really, really well. And so the team's been, at least here, has been really utilizing it. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing to that?
Please.
Emily, I like the way that you were saying that about AI and fear. I do think there is the fear of the unknown when it comes to AI. And let's be honest, we know something today and it changes tomorrow. It's a really difficult space to keep up in. I would, if I was a leader, I would encourage, like the examples that Emily just gave, but I would also encourage a way to foster the sharing of ideas related to that. And I can give you just a really simple example of what we do at CSS. And it's a super simple example, but it works. We have a Teams chat, and we call it our co-pilot Teams chat, because there's a handful of us that have like the add-on version of the Microsoft 365. So we're constantly sharing ideas of, oh, I tried this, or here's a video to watch. But it really does help us explore more and find different ways to use it. So I would encourage just having something that simple. And we meet maybe every 8 to 10 weeks. So we have a group call that just shares those ideas. But I would encourage finding something with that with your teams.
No, and that's fantastic. I know that's been one of the top issues that we've been talking about. And we had a whole webinar about just doing prompting for sales, which was very, very well received. And that's what, like you said, Emily, there are so many platforms for so many different tasks. Are there any specific, the ones that are better for certain tasks or that are better for others?
Oh my gosh. I feel that I am like living in ChatGPT all the time. I've also in the past worked with Topline and Futuri that utilizes AI in certain regards, and that's been really great. If you've never heard of them, Google them. They're pretty good, but I'm sure there are other AIs that I could be leveraging, and I can always do a better job. So if anybody has any recommendations, drop it in the chat.
And I'll kind of pitch this to both of you because, obviously we're still worried about hallucinations and sometimes when AI goes awry. So how do you kind of how do you put up the guardrails per se, and still encourage that learning and that exploration, but in a way that keeps everybody safe and on the straight and narrow, so to speak?
Yeah. That is a very real thing. And I think it goes back to exactly what you just said a minute ago, Cameron, about the prompts. The prompts matter in that, of making sure that you're adding prompts of sourcing the truth and always looking. Like if you use Copilot, it gives you the numbered box you can click on and see the link. I would always check those things to make sure and not just assume that it is accurate, because the hallucinations are a real thing. Or use closed system chat bots if you have, access to that. Like if you're a CSS client, you can use Sales Accelerator AI, or if there's others out there, of course.
So we'll move on past AI because another reality that's kind of a wake-up call when it comes to training. 61% of sellers that CSS surveyed said that learning and development is very important to them, which is great to hear. But only about half of those are training weekly. And only 22%, they flat out admit they're not spending enough time on training. And, we've talked about all the prospecting, and even with the AI saving you time, Stephanie, if people want it, but they aren't doing it, where's the disconnect there? Is it just time?
I mean, that's always a factor for sure, but it's also about priorities, of making sure that is a priority in your organization, and that you're finding those opportunities to do it. Anytime I think about those training moments and leaders of sales organizations, I think about, do they have routines in place to support that, and all of the opportunities through the day that you get those training moments and those coaching moments. It's not always just about a formal meeting and everybody's in the room. Of course, it can happen in those moments, but think about the moments like in your weekly one-on-ones. I mean, we call those IFMs, the individual focus meetings. There's moments then that you can have training. You're talking about target accounts, and somebody says, I'm stalled on this target account and I'm trying to get a meeting. There's a training moment. Tell me what you've done. What does your valid business reason sound like? Are you reaching out to the decision makers or the right people? Do you have a depth of contact? There's always those moments, but I would also make sure that you have the routine in place of being in field with your team and having that cadence, and it's on the calendar and it's expected, because those are other opportunities for coaching and training as well.
Yeah, and that's because you all found that half of sellers have only received feedback on their talents at some point in time. 1 in 10 never received feedback.
That makes me sad.
Yeah. And only 26% of sellers feel very prepared for where the industry is changing. Emily, what are some practical ways that you've found to create a stronger coaching culture and some success that you've had with your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that at the forefront of structure is going to be accountability from a management perspective. And so it's important that the team understands where are we trying to go and how are we going to get there, big picture wise, and then how each individual plays a very important role into that. I also wanted to touch briefly on the fact of like AI and training. If I see that a team is struggling, or maybe a couple of folks are running into the same issues, objections, whatever it could possibly be, utilizing AI to actually help build out training slides that I'm able to utilize in continuing education as well, just to bring in another perception that's not just me, to try to help the team understand better. But definitely one-on-ones, leading by example. That's what I mean by accountability. I mean, it's the team, but it's also like you looking at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, making sure that like you're doing what you need to be doing, because the team will be looking at you whether you realize it or not. So if you're not feeling good about something, they're probably not going to feel good about it either. And then also encouraging peer-to-peer learning. I am huge on like promoting shadowing or role playing, talking about wins or successes, not necessarily just closes, as well as a team really helps with the culture and the confidence as well.
So I know that there's also been a vision disparity, that you found at the CSS, the study. 73% of managers are optimistic, which is good, but only half of the sellers, 50%, are optimistic about the future. Stephanie, when leadership sees opportunity, but the frontline don't, what happens to the motivation and the retention at that point?
Yeah, it's not as good, right? I mean, people aren't leaning into the direction we're going. They're not leaning into vision and their part in doing that. It breaks down the process and the system. I think, in those moments when we know that there's such an important piece of us as leaders really sharing the vision and mission of the organization, but it's not just about telling somebody what it is. I mean, that's the easy part of just saying, here, this is what we're going to do. But it's how do you find those moments to bring it alive all day, every day? It's not just telling them and moving on. That's not how our people operate. I mean, they want to hear it on a regular basis and they want to see you live it out and bring it to life. It's all about the messaging and the frequency of the messaging in that.
And I know that when it comes to the leadership, industry optimism is kind of declining just all across the board. We're talking about how 73% of managers are optimistic, but in 2021, I believe that number was 82%. So here in post-COVID, there's been a slide. I'll ask you, Emily, what keeps you optimistic about the radio industry?
Oh my gosh, man, I would just say that sales in our industry, it's kind of like being on a roller coaster where you have ups and downs. That's just how it goes. And knowing that you're putting in the work, you make the plan, you work the plan, you have people that come to work and show up every single day, passionate about live content, community engagement. We can help businesses grow, all of the different, entities of broadcast. And we're all showing up for the same reason. And so I think that keeps me going is the fact that everybody believes in it and works together to see our way like through the tough days, because there are good days that happen when we hit budget. It's a great time, obviously. And so definitely celebrating those wins, but kind of a little bit what I was saying earlier about not necessarily just celebrating closes, but when we have good ratings, when we do something that's really impactful for the community. I mean, people are really passionate that work in this industry, and I think it's just important to see the good especially when times get hard.
Stephanie, I'll ask you. What do you see optimism wise that keeps you excited about the future of the radio sales industry?
Yeah. it's still fun, right? It's still a fun thing to do, and we can still make really good livings at it. And it is about, of course, it is about driving revenue, but I love what you said, Emily, about the community and the voice in our community and the local side of that and all of the things that we can do to support it. It's still a great medium to be in.
Radio it's all about that one-to-one connection, whether that's with the talent and the listener, whether that's with the AE and the client, and even the manager and the sales reps themselves. I'll ask both of you this. What specific actions are you seeing on that one-on-one level that kind of help bridge the optimism gap, build that genuine support rather than just feeling maybe like checking a box?
Emily, you want to go first, then I'll chime in?
Sure, perfect. So I like to coach everybody on an individual level. I don't try to blanket coach because they don't resonate with that. And so sitting in one-on-ones and looking at the prospects, talking about the deals that are getting closed, the fight for for majority share, or just an increase in share, what motivates that specific person. And that's what I'm focusing on. I want to help them be the best version of themselves, especially the best sales version of themselves, so that they come to work, they're bought in, they understand the why. Why the heck are we doing this? Why am I making all of these dead gum calls? I just want to bang my head into the wall. And so having them understand that and be like, you know what? I want to show up, not just for myself, but I want to show up for Emily. I want to show up for the production. I want to show up for all these people that need me to be on my game. I want to be on my game. Like, this is rewarding. And so just being able to recognize when somebody's having a tough time and how to pull that person out of it and just kind of get them back into that big picture and be like, everything's great. Everything sometimes is not great, but there are positives out there. And so just finding those individual ways and moments to encourage them and make sure that they feel seen and heard with issues as well is just crucial.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Yes. So as leaders, we're coaching to a process, right? We're coaching to a sales process, but we really do have to tailor that and coach to the individual. As Emily was just touching on, we have to understand what their innate talents are. How do we use those talents, their natural strengths that they have? How do we coach to those? Also understanding what motivates our salespeople, because we can use that in coaching them. We have a process that it's called the growth guide. It's a questionnaire, and you can create this for yourself. But it's just really a list of questions of understanding. So if somebody is having a tough time or they're down, how do they want us as leaders to approach that? Do they want us to give them a couple of days? Do they want us to address it head on? If they win in a scenario, they close a deal, do they like to be recognized in private? Do they like to be recognized in public? All of those things that we can just drill down to the individual of what's important to them just helps us as leaders really tailor how we're coaching and how we are managing that individual.
Absolutely.
And so I know we got a few minutes here for some Q&A, so make sure and put those in the chat, put those in the comments, and we'll get to those with our expert panel. But we had one kind of more of a comment here is talking about, I'll read it. It says, I think a lot of times GMs and owners get frustrated with new or young salespeople when actually they aren't given said salespeople a great product to sell. If you're giving them just a corporate playlist with no personality and expecting young salespeople to crush it, it's not that they won't last, it's that they'll leave and they'll go crush it somewhere else. And I know this is a big concern, the hiring of, the youngest millennials and Gen Z, they're working their way into the sales workforce. So what are you all seeing on that front?
I would hire them all day long. Now, I have caveats. Here's the big if you are willing to invest the time. You as a leader are a factor in this hiring process too, right? And I think it goes beyond just the product. I don't disagree with that, but I think it goes beyond just the product. It really is about having a very structured onboarding process for these, really no matter the age of the individual, probably based more off experience than anything. We need set expectations for them. We need to tell them exactly what we want to do and how we want to do it. We need to train them, and it needs to be a week by week by week guide that they're able to follow. I think so often when they don't work is that we're not giving them that. We're missing the boat on that. We're not onboarding them in the right ways. We're doing a little bit of a set it and forget it and hope they make it. It's on us. We have to do a better job of that.
And
that's not looking. But you got to look in the mirror. I've made onboarding plans down to the week. So like it looks like a little calendar, a little desk calendar. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it's like, this is what needs to be happening every single day, like step-by-step moment. Because there's a huge learning curve when people are coming into our industry. If they've never done sales before, if they've never done this type of sales before, there is a learning curve. And so like she was saying, like making sure we have to be organized and structured so that they can fully understand what's going on. I think that if they have the determination and the ability to learn and fight the fight that we all fight every single day, and we give them the proper structure and resources, there's no reason why they shouldn't fail unless they lack the talent.
Yeah, completely agree. The other thing, I've seen clients do this, so just tossing this out as an idea, sometimes early in the onboarding process, instead of giving them everything they have to learn, like every product we have or every sales initiative we have, maybe you narrow that focus and only give them a couple of things that you want them to sell at first. One, they get mastery. Two, we don't overwhelm them in the process, and we let them have some success and some wins early on. Then they can build from that.
Yep. And you got to be ready to get in the trenches with them, because if they've never done this, like people learn, visually, audio, and then sometimes it's hands-on. I'm a very hands-on learner and visual. So it's like somebody finally got in the car with me and was like, let's go make a sales call. That's when it really clicked for me, because reading a manual and watching a video about sales in general, it didn't register in my brain. And so when somebody took that time and I asked, hey, can I shadow the top AE where I started out at? I was like, I want to see what makes them successful. That really helped me. So just being willing, like she said, to commit the time, commit to the bit, go out on sales calls with them, show them how it's done. Like, you know how to do it. So go show them, and then start, eventually they'll be, parroting along and catching on and being more confident. And then they'll be like, okay, I got this. And you'll see that as well. And you'll know it's time to, take the training wheels off and be like, all right, let's go make some money.
Yeah, I would not let a new seller go out in the field on an appointment without a sales leader.
I've seen it.
Yeah, for weeks and weeks and weeks. Sales leaders need to be on every single solitary call initially.
It's not good. I'm going to take your business if you're sending a new sales rep out and you're not there with them. I promise. Because they're gonna sell themselves out of deals. They're not gonna, resonate confidence. And these decision makers, they can smell that. Y'all know that. So set them up for success versus failure.
And it's so hard to find them, as we started with this whole conversation about recruiting. It is so difficult to find the right people, the talents, the fit, people in general.
Yeah.
Let's not churn our team from the beginning.
Solid advice. And we got time, I think, for one more question here. And this one, actually, I had written in the side of my notes here because I just thought it was an interesting point as I was doing some research. One of the things that you all found was that there are lean teams these days, which can be a good or a bad thing, depending on the day. 30% of sales managers are managing just 1 to 5 people in their teams, and I know that both of you have worked with teams of varying sizes. How does that impact the hiring strategy, first of all? And, when churn happens, and it does, but also, is that a weakness or a superpower for radio?
Emily, you want to go?
Sure. Oh, sure. Okay. So being short-staffed, and I wrote this down earlier, which is so funny. Being short-staffed and having, there's probably better wording out there for this, so I apologize. Like a problem employee or somebody who's not performing, somebody who might not be the best fit for this role. You have two problems. So working and coaching up somebody who may not be a great fit, sometimes that is not the best use of our time. And sometimes that person needs to go find like their passion. And then you only have one problem of being short-staffed. So either way, you're going to be short-staffed. So you might as well kind of make it worth your while a little bit in terms of that. This also can help fix culture, especially if it's somebody who's more of a toxic than a help, which I have seen. And, you know, they go about the rest of their lives, and coming in the next day, the team is like a whole brand new team. And you kind of forget for a brief moment that you're short staffed until that Indeed post comes along and is like, you got a new resume, and then you're back on the grind. Stephanie, what about you?
We need to help those people be happy elsewhere, right? So I have a slightly different take on team size. I think that's a constant battle of, do we have, you know, one too few or one too many? That is a really hard thing to identify and to know. I would think about your sales structure as part of the thinking of what is the team size needed. I would step back and ask yourself questions like, is my sales structure doing what it's designed to do? You know, these are our top 3 KPIs that we pay attention to day in and day out. Are we meeting them on a consistent basis? And if not, where's the shortfall? And some of that diagnostic type of work, because it may help you think down to, is it a people problem, as Emily was just saying, or is it a process problem or something in our structure? And that can help really identify the size of team that you need in the organization.
I think that's about all the time we have for today. Like I said, it's been a jam-packed 30 minutes here, and I wanted to thank both of you so much. Stephanie, Emily, thank you for joining us here. I think this has been very informative, and you know, I love this bright outlook, you know, especially if there is that optimism battle we're talking about. I think this is a good step to fighting it here today. So we'll see you all at the next Radio Masters Sales Series webinar. Thank you all for joining us here today. And I'm going to put up a link in tomorrow's Radio Inc. daily headlines to not only this webinar, so you can go back and share it with your staff or your general manager as may be needed, but we'll also have a link to the Center for Sales Strategies, a whole study, so that you can check that out for yourself. Until next time, I'm Cameron Coates for Radio Inc. Thanks for joining us.